Hello, I am Hiroe Makiyama, a member of the House of Councillors of the National Diet of Japan. The central topic of the second half of the 2023 Diet session was the revision of the Immigration Control and Refugee Recognition Act. As the next Minister of Justice in the next cabinet of the Constitutional Democratic Party, as well as the head of the Legal Affairs section of my faction, and the first opposition member of the House of Councillors Legal Affairs Committee, I was in charge of this matter during this period. As someone in such a position, I would like to explain the process and implications of this situation. First, I will explain the pillars of the government's proposal. The new law will limit the number of times an immigrant can apply for refugee status while being guaranteed the right to stay in Japan to a maximum of 2 attempts, after which the Immigration Council can deport the immigrant. This bill would endanger the lives of those who should be protected. A similar bill was proposed 2 years ago, but it was retracted after the death of Wishma Sandomari at the Nagoya Immigration Detention Facility. This bill has been reintroduced this year without any changes to its framework. The amendment was proposed based on the statement of Fusako Yanase, a longtime refugee examination counselor, that there are no genuine refugees who should be protected among applicants, which was the central statement supporting the necessity for the amendment. However, during the deliberation process, the Minister of Justice denied the trustworthiness of this testimony. This is a collapse of the legislative fact, and if this were an everyday deliberation, the bill would be scrapped immediately. Adding on to this, it was revealed that a full-time doctor at the Osaka Immigration Bureau allegedly examined a foreign detainee while drunk. This shows how, even after the Wishma case, the medical system at the Immigration Bureau has not been improved, undermining previous explanations about immigration reform. It was also revealed that tremendous amount of applications were allocated to rapid processing that assumed denial for most applications from the very beginning. Even with such problems being uncovered daily, the ruling party forced through the bill. This is a scapegoat from having to deal directly with the problems and should deserve great condemnation. Overall, however, I believe that this battle was not in vain. The intense pursuit of this issue in the Diet has led to the discovery of many problems, such as the ones I had just mentioned, all of which are realities that cannot be overlooked. These developments have also triggered an increase in public interest. We will not let this opportunity pass us by, and we will continue our efforts to abolish the revised law to normalize the immigration and refugee administration. But what is behind Japan's abnormal immigration and refugee policies? I myself asked at the plenary session, which mistakes should be avoided more? Cases in which people are judged not to be refugees when they actually are, or given protection as refugees when they are not real refugees? Justice Minister Saito did not give me a clear answer. It makes me wonder whether he thinks that turning away real refugees is better than accepting false ones. In addition, the final report on Wishma's death states that the reason provided for denying her provisional release was that it was necessary to make her understand her position and strongly persuade her to return home. It is clearly stated that the detention was used as a tool to inflict pain, to make them give up staying in Japan. What lies behind the continuing scandals at the Immigration Bureau is the mentality of discrimination against foreigners. As a counselor at the Immigration Bureau of the Ministry of Justice stated more than half a century ago, people are free to eat up foreigners, boiled or baked. Foreigners without resident status within Japan are in the most vulnerable position. Society that cannot protect those vulnerable people cannot protect anything. As anyone can potentially be in their situation. This issue is not someone else's business. The United Nations Human Rights Organization and other organizations have expressed serious concerns about Japan's deficient refugee status and have criticized the use of physical detention and indefinite internment without judicial review as a violation of human rights in international law. I believe that scandals and human rights violations in immigration and refugee administration should not be seen as unique and exceptional, but rather as a clear reflection of the human rights standards in our country. Actually, international concerns and criticisms of human rights violations are not unique to these fields. Issues on the technical training system, discrimination against women, the handicapped, and LGBT. The Japanese government has been criticized on a variety of points, but it has rarely accepted these criticisms. In fact, it has repeatedly responded to them with counter-criticism and stubbornness, calling them misconceptions and one-sided. Behind this is the 20th century concept of international law, which focuses on the interest of states. The nation's convenience is at the forefront, and human rights are affirmed only to the extent that the nation recognizes them. Even nowadays, one member of the committee in favor of the bill said, "No national interest, no human rights." However, the current international standard is completely different. The 21st century concept of international law places human interests at the center. It guarantees the rights of all human beings everywhere in the world. Under any circumstances, we need to ensure at least the basic treatment for human beings. The correct direction is to create an inclusive, diverse society that does not exclude people based on their attributes. To create such a truly symbiotic society, there should be no difference in human rights standards between Japanese and foreign people. Deterring discrimination means building a society which facilitates minorities to live. In a sense, since everyone is a minority, this belief leads to a place where anyone can pursue happiness. Again, protecting human rights and prohibiting discrimination is not somebody else's affair. Unfortunately, our country is not a leader when it comes to the protection of human rights. This is contrary to the general opinion that it is a country that advocates for the protection of freedom and human rights and promotes value diplomacy and human rights diplomacy. In fact, it is a narrative that only exists in the context of contrast with authoritarian states. Indeed, when criticism is directed at Japan, the government does not even attempt to consider improvements. As the next Minister of Justice, I would like to change Japan from the old 20th century concept of human rights, which is the cause of the discrepancy between Japan and the international community, to the 21st century international standard idea of human rights. This will certainly make our country a more comfortable society to live in. I am strongly determined to tackle various policy issues with this common goal in mind. Thank you very much for listening.